Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hamish Duff from the Orion Network. I would very much like to thank BIC and QRM for the invitation, the ability to speak today. When we think about unified communications, that word has been around for a long time, and the old meaning for us used to be how to unify the computer desktop and the telephone. For us in our world, that's a completely different meaning. I too will start by explaining who the Orion Network is for those who haven't met us before. The Orion Network is a unity of a number of radio and telecommunications companies around Australia. It was started by myself in Sydney, and it was started very much with bus companies in mind when we started seeing the transition to the digital age, and as we started seeing new rules and regulations that were facing the bus industry, we also looked for technology to help bus operators do what you have to do every day. And we're very focused on what actually happens between bus operators and the bus drivers and the day-to-day running of your operations. So our business represents about 150 people around the country. We have operations in Perth, in Adelaide, in Melbourne, in Sydney, Canberra, the Hunter Valley, and also in Brisbane. And we're very fortunate to have many bus operators as customers. We'd like to thank you very much. The last 5 years has been a real journey for us, but now we're starting on the next phase of that journey as we invest again in technology and we add more and more possibilities to this unified vehicle. And also as governments bring in new rules, especially around mobility as a service, but also the regional contracts, we're seeing more and more compliance is required. And it's sort of fitting that risk management is the sponsor for today, because a lot of the things that we do are around audit trails and managing risk. I'm sure many people would know that we started life as the humble two-way radio, although radios these days are far more complicated devices. They're software defined, they're digital, and we've kept adding bits and pieces to the network to provide more information. And we call that the Orion part in the middle. We've added many segments to that to help people communicate with their drivers, between staff in the control room, between maintenance staff, between all parts of the business to the driver in a more effective manner. We've just put that slide up because we're currently in the process of changing to the latest Motorola technology, what's called Capacity Max, So you'll start seeing announcements for us as we roll out the new technology around the country. The Orion Network has been running for 6 years now. It's been running on our existing Motorola technology, but we're in the process of moving to the next phase, which is called Capacity Max. It's also an open technology, so we will be encouraging people to have multi-vendor technology. So in the past, we have been limited to one particular supplier, but we're moving to a multi-vendor supplier to encourage innovation. The key things that the Orion Network does for you now, it allows that ability to have the one-to-one messaging to the driver, to have group messaging, and group, of course, is where traditional two-way radio came from, but it's still a very important factor, particularly when you've got cities like Sydney, which are currently being dug up. It took me 2.5 hours to get to the airport this morning in Sydney because we're digging up so many roads, and this is leading to many complications in the transport networks, as you can imagine, and it means constant change. And being able to effectively dial up a group of people in near real time is very important, and you need the right technology to do that. Of course, the big thing for us is also duress alarms. Unfortunately, in many environments, drivers do get harassed or they do get physically attacked, and the driver needs to feel comfortable that they can communicate safely with their ACC. And there's a whole heap of things that happen in the background on the Orion Network, particularly around audit trails, recording of events, recording of voice, so that the system has a level of integrity. And even recording of day-to-day events. So many of our users have actually minimised the amount of voice traffic on the network and gone to pre-recorded events. So if I look at the M2 run in Sydney, for example, which is from the northwest of Sydney into the centre of Sydney, I think it's about 600 services a day. The drivers used to have lots of trouble communicating regular things like the bus is full or I've got problems, I need to change shifts, and these have all been changed to automated systems which then get located, get audited, and that saves a heap of time. And when you're running these frontline services where time becomes very critical, saving time is very important. With our enhanced options, we're now moving to add extra services like the passenger announcement. So we're starting to see governments ask for the ability for operational command and control from your operational centre to be able to communicate with bus passengers via the PA systems. Now, that sounds relatively easy sometimes, but when you look at the technology behind it, it's actually quite complex. And this is one product that we use that Motorola very cleverly allowed third-party software to integrate to their networks. So many of our customers in the room are using this kind of product now. It's called TurboNet. And basically, that allows you to set up a communications room. It could be just a laptop, it could be a proper control room, but it has all these facilities on board to allow all these features to happen natively on the radio network. So whether it's your event logging, your administration, of course your voice, encryption, bridging between networks, and now we're adding indoor positioning. Now, indoor positionings come from a slightly different market. If we look on the right-hand side, there's a lot of people who now walk around buildings, and if you think about locating things inside buildings, you can't use GPS because the GPS signals don't penetrate inside the building. Now we can add that same iBeacon technology to the radio network. So that has many different kinds of uses. You'll probably find Init's using it in their products as well, but it has all kinds of ramifications. It means we can track buses when they're underground in an interchange, such as in Perth or in Brisbane, where we just can't get GPS signals, but we can locate that bus next to a beacon, or we can locate people next to something, or we can locate people next to CCTV cameras. Wherever there's an iBeacon present, we can actually determine that location by the radio and match it to a map. But the really big innovation for us is the connection between the mobile phone, the 4G, 5G world, and the radio net world. So we're about to launch this product now, where you'll be able to have both the traditional radio type service, you'll be able to have a radio that works over a Wi-Fi service, and you'll be able to have your smartphone phone service all integrated into that one unified map. So that means no matter what device is perfect for you or what situation is perfect for you, you'll be able to use those, consume those same services, or you can use both. So if we look at the next picture, as we're seeing more and more now, more data is becoming more and more important. So the more data you can get into your control room, the more data you can own and manage and analyse, the better your business is. But of course, you've got to get the data there in the first place. On a traditional radio system, that's been quite a struggle because, as many people would know, we can't just pump video over radio services. We don't have endless amounts of data. But what we can do is be very smart about how we move that data now. So these new services are able to move very vast amounts of GPS data and beacon data, bundle them together, and present to you a almost real-time picture of actual route management, whether that's coming from a indoor tracking scenario or an underground tracking scenario, or that's using GPS across either the radio network or the 4G network, or both. Now, for some people, some of these systems go back to being very simple. When I showed the first diagram, I think it was actually talked about was a CB radio. So we have some customers who actually have to move a bus or a vehicle off networks and go and provide private services to mining companies. So in that particular case, the communications tool they have there is something very simple. It's a simplex radio. Even in that circumstance, that radio device is still actually collecting data. So the device can be collecting data, and when it comes back into a service area later on, it could be a Wi-Fi area, it could be a mobile phone network, the data will get downloaded by that simple tool. And one of the best things about using these devices, what looks like a 2-hour radio in your bus, is that they're very robust. They generally last for 10 to 15 years, and they have an operating system in there which has to be ultra reliable. So there's a lot of debate going on in our industry about whether we should move all of our devices to Android type systems, but that comes with lots of complications as we move to more open systems, they are exposed to the internet. A lot of the systems we're talking about here are kept away from the internet at the actual operational level for security reasons. But we recognise that we're living in a complicated world, so when we look at our world, that's what our future bus looks like. So we're steadily working towards integrating both the driver's radio network, onboard Wi-Fi network, and the explosion of sensor networks that's happening right now. So if you look around many industries, there's actually an explosion of sensor-type devices. And what I'm talking about here is the Internet of Things. There are thousands of devices coming to market that run off a small battery, will last for years and years, and send you small amounts of data. That could be measuring a door opening, it could be measuring all kinds of things. This technology will become part and parcel of many vehicles and other things like smart signs or smart bus stops. All that kind of IoT is going to start getting integrated together. For us, as we're a company that's really focused on providing operators the service that they need, we're targeting those particular systems that help you compete in a very competitive world where you've got competitive tendering for services, where you've got on-time running rules, where you've got all of these problems to meet every day. That's what we will be focusing on, and that's what our engineers will be working towards, because there's all kinds of options out there to join things together, but our real focus is on maintaining, as I think we heard before, we're all in this together. Public transport is very important. Governments are spending very large sums of money on public transport, but the better we can make the operations, the more everything works together better. I'm probably going to run a little bit under time so we can catch up a bit, but the one thing that people have been asking me for since 1998, and I've been in this business since 1981, so I can't exactly tell you what the first bus I ever worked on was, but it was probably a Leyland something. The thing that people have been asking me for forever is, how come we can't get a video when a bus driver's in duress? We really want to see what the bus driver is dealing with right now. And I'm going to end on that piece because that's kind of where we're heading to right now. We'll have that on display next week at our first big conference for this kind of show. We will start providing video of duress situations so that you can record that instance in real time going forward. And our engineers are working on taking existing camera feeds and new feeds for that purpose. I do have a couple more slides, sorry, Rolf. Of course, the driver experience is very, very important, engaging our workforce, getting the most out of drivers. We're seeing a lot of technology working very effectively on the drivers self-assessing themselves. If you think about it, it's a bit like the Uber model where they want constant feedback all the time. So we are looking at the driver consoles providing that kind of information as well, taking information from the vehicle in terms of smooth braking and that customer experience. And also all these other technologies that we're putting on the map for people so that we can assist particularly drivers out in regional areas where they need more information about other things that are going on around them. So we're working really close with a number of partners to integrate these services together to bring to you guys so that we can understand your actual needs, but also be the engineers, if you like, that actually understand how these communications networks actually function. So I'd like to end on that note. Thank you very much, Rolf.